just found a young beech tree in amongst some giant beech trees, and it's difficult to get enough separation because there's a lot of mess behind it. So I think I'm just going to do my best and use the largest aperture available on this lens, which at the moment is f4, shooting at 70mm. Yeah, I just hope that the final image will actually show some separation, because at the moment it's looking a bit kind of I don't know, a bit confusing. So I'll try it in portrait as well, I think, which might be a better idea. It's so good being in these conditions. I absolutely love it. I've got so much to do today, but I'm trying to do this vlog. Got a tennis match soon. I've already been in town, photographing in town, but the lights didn't last very long in town, and the fog doesn't last long in town either. It just all warms up very quickly. Anyway, got a shot in the bag. I'll do a vertical one as well in 4:3 ratio, and time to move on. Phew, it soon gets hot when you're walking fast around Woodland, even if it is the middle of winter. I just found this composition. I'm going to have to include some of the sky, but I think that's fine because there's still enough mist around to actually make a good image. So I've got some distracting holly on the top left, but I've balanced it out with some distracting holly on the bottom right. So I think this should work as a shot. So it's important to get the exposure right in woodland, because it's so easy to burn out the sky when you've got a dark foreground woodland and then you've got a bright sky above. The sun's coming up and I'm going to have to work fast-ish, but not so fast that I miss a good shot. So I think because the trees at the side are slightly converging now because of the wide lens, so I'm at 24mm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out to 20mm, which actually looks a bit daft, but then I'm going to transform that image in Photoshop later on. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. One stop under exposure, just to make sure the sky is not burned out. I think the sun's going to rise and come through these trees soon, but I'm not sure whether to wait here or go down to my favourite bit where I've caught good sunrises before. This is why I always say get to know your local woodland. So if you're a beginner watching this, get to your woodland even on a lousy day, take pictures of it, get used to the settings, where to focus, etc, etc. Then when you get brilliant conditions like this, you'll be prepared. Yeah, make sure you can try and get some sort of separation between the trees as well. So a lot of these trees are kind of clashing with each other, so I've moved my tripod around just tiny little bits and moved the whole setup around just to try and get the best composition. And I think I've got it, so that's good. One good thing to do in woodland is to raise your tripod up as high as it can possibly go, so that you're not pointing a wide angle lens upwards, which is going to create distortion and make the trees all bend inwards towards the top of the frame. And obviously this is a good time to use the screen to compose, because you can have it up as high as you want and still compose nicely with the screen. Yeah, even at what am I at now, 24mm, it's still slightly curving. So when I take my shot, I'm going to zoom out slightly and then correct that in Photoshop with the transform tool. Notice also that I've put my hood on because there's quite a lot of drips coming from the trees, so that will stop any water forming on the front of your lens. Sometimes I think I'm looking at the world through rose-tinted spectacles, because I like my pictures to be kind of as natural as possible, as beautiful as possible. So I don't really like seeing these tree stumps in my shots. But you know, I'm not going to clone them out. I mean, this is what the real world's like, isn't it? It's got tree stumps, it's got rubbish. I still think I'm going to clone out rubbish, but yeah, this one tree stump is just right in the way of my composition. Do I clone it out or not? Well, you'll see in the following picture. The other thing you can do to reduce the dreaded converging verticals look, apart from buying a tilt shift lens, which I used to own, but I sold because it was just too much to carry around all the time. Yeah, what you can do is you could crop to 16:9 ratio. So at the moment I'm in 3:2. And if I put it into video mode, just show you what I'm doing, glasses will help. Then at the moment I'm pointing the camera up slightly. You can see how the trees are converging at the sides. So what you can do is, if you're in 16:9, is you can do something like this and just point the camera downwards. As soon as you start to point the camera downwards and it becomes level, then the trees straighten up, and then you can just crop the bottom of the frame off later on. So that's another way of doing it. One stop under to avoid the sky burning out. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And I know it works in 16:9 because I was just in video mode. I think I might go 1.5 stops under. Let's just play that one back. Yeah, it's burning out in the corner. So I'm going to go perhaps 2 stops under. 2 stops under. That's a lot under, but anyway, I can lift the shadows later on in Photoshop. Good, right, here's that shot. Here's the image in Photoshop. So all you do now is select all, and then edit transform, and you choose perspective, and that gives you these handles. If I just zoom out a little bit, it's easier. Just drag the handles until there's trees at the side straighten up and the whole thing is a better composition, something like that. And then press enter, and then you can press deselect if you want to, and then you just get the crop tool out, which you see on the keyboard, and you can choose a value up here if you want to. So I'm going to choose 16:9, and then just crop the bottom part off, and that's it. I would have kept this image, but I don't like this stump on the bottom. I could clone it out, but I think I've got other pictures on this day that are better than this one, so I'm just going to delete it anyway. So Apexel offered to send me this lens to try, and I don't use my phone enough for taking pictures, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to start using it more. And it's a macro zoom lens, and also they sent me this light to test, LED light, and I've just taken a shot of this camellia in flower, and the lens is, because it's quite a large lens, fast lens, f1.05 I think is right. I'll check that later and put it on the screen if it's wrong. It's giving really nice soft out of focus black backgrounds, which you don't normally get with phones. Normally the phone's background out of focus section, the bokeh, is quite jagged and not very pleasant, whereas this is giving me a nice, really smooth, it looks like proper camera photography with this lens. And the light is superb. So you switch the light on and it really makes a lot of difference. It really lights up the middle of the flower perfectly and gives the whole image a lot more colour. So very impressive results. I wasn't expecting this, I must say. And for such a small thing to carry around, I think it's excellent. And you've got a couple of different strengths of light as well. And that's off. So that just screws on the front of the lens, and then you can zoom in and out. Now, one thing I have found, this light is great, but if you're trying to zoom in really close, you're getting far too close, and the light, actually the phone itself actually creates a shadow over the image. So it's better for slightly further away subjects like this camellia here. Yeah, definitely better with the macro light on as well. Really good. I must admit, I was quite ready to send this macro lens back if I wasn't happy with it, and just not review it. But I decided that I really like it, so I'm going to keep it, and I think it's highly recommended because you get a real metal and glass lens for $44, which is pretty good, really. And you also get this eye cup extension thing on it, which just clips onto the back of the lens, which you can use for really extreme close-ups. So I'm going to be using that to examine my camera's sensor to make sure there's no dust or grease on it. So yeah, it's a highly recommended product. One of my subscribers asked what mode I shoot in, and the answer is quite simple. I shoot in manual mode when I'm on a tripod, because it's much easier to just turn the shutter speed around to get the exposure you want. So I nearly always shoot in f8. I say nearly always. It's not a golden rule, so don't copy me, you know, because there are times when I shoot f4, times when I shoot f16 or f22. But tripod equals manual mode, so that's choosing the shutter speed and aperture myself. And if I'm hand holding, which is rare, but when I do, then I use aperture priority, because it's much easier, because when you pan the camera around, as the light changes in different places, dark, light, then the camera automatically chooses the right shutter speed appropriate to the aperture that you've chosen. So if I'm in f8, but if I'm in f8 here, because it's quite dark in this forest, and then I decide to do a handheld shot with where it's quite dark, it'll probably take me down below the shutter speed, which is any good. So I'll end up with camera shake. So what you would do in aperture priority mode, what you have to do is be careful of the shutter speed all the time. Because if it drops below, say, a 60th of a second, you're going to get camera shake. And the only other time I use the other mode, which is shutter priority, is when I'm shooting birds, and then you need to set it at something like 1,000th of a second with auto ISO, and then whenever you're tracking the bird, you know you're going to have a fast enough shutter speed. Sometimes it's 2,000th of a second, sometimes even higher, depending on the birds and how fast they're flying. Keep your questions coming, please. I'm happy to answer them, and I'll try and answer them in a video so that everyone can benefit. So now the time's 9:42 and the sun is supposed to be rising. Well, it is rising, but it's behind the fog. But I've got a really nice composition, and I know where the sun is going to rise. Well, it's kind of on the top right of my composition at the moment. So I'm just hoping that it'll actually start shining, and then we'll get some of that side lighting with the streaks of light flashing through the trees. But that's my hope. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. So at least I've got some time to stop and have a nice cup of tea. Actually, it's decaf coffee again. I'm going mad these days. I'm really treating myself. Yeah, this looks like a pretty good shot. So before I take it, I'm just going to do a quick bit of woodland tidying. It's much more fun than cloning things out. Oh, that's alive. Get rid of these things. Get rid of that stick. Take them out of frame. I'm going out of frame. See you in a minute. And these, I think, are right in the corner of my image. which are a bit annoying. So I'm going to lay them down flat. Woo! That should do it. I hope I've just got the right ones out of the corner of my frame. I won't see till I get back to you. Keeps you much fitter than cloning. It's already been a fabulous morning. I cancelled my tennis match, so I'm just going to stay here in the woods until the sun finally bursts through this fog. It's starting to come through a little bit. I don't know, I think it's quite high now, so I don't know if we're going to get that sideways beautiful light rays. You know, I don't think we're going to get that. But I've got the sun behind this tree, and it looks a bit distracting when you're shooting at f8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one shot at f22, because then you get the kind of mini starburst effect. I'm going to take one shot focused there where the sun is and get that starburst effect. Yeah, okay, that's good. But the rest of the image will suffer from diffraction, which means the whole image goes slightly soft when you're shooting at such a tiny aperture like f22. So now I'm going to take the same shot at f8. So the rest of the scene is going to have nice quality about it, but I'll still have that starburst thing, sunburst, and then I'm going to just combine those two images in Photoshop. So I was half a stop under at f22, so I've got to make sure I'm half a stop under at f8. So I'm just going to show you how I developed these two files. So I've got two there that were taken from exactly the same spot, focused in the same place. And as you can see, I've got the starburst effect there by using the f22 aperture. And then on the next image, that's f8, there's very little starburst. But if you look at the quality, that's the f8 and that's the f16. Hopefully you can see how soft the f22 is compared to the sharpness of the f8 image. So that's why I've done it. So that's f22, that's f8. Yeah, it's a lot sharper. But of course I want the starburst, so I'm going to select both of those images by holding down the control key, right click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Yes, the starburst layer is at the top, which is where we want it. Now I'm going to select by using the control key and select both of those layers here, and then I'm going to go to edit, auto align layers, click OK on the auto setting, and then I'm going to just I'm going to zoom into 100% again so you can see the quality of that. So that, have a look at that and see how soft it is. So that's the f22 image, and then if I click the eyelet off on the right, look how much sharper the f8 is. So all I want to choose, actually I've got this the wrong way around, I want the starburst layer underneath. So I'm going to click on the top layer. Now I've got the f8 layer on the top, and I'm just going to find out where the starburst is by dragging across. And that's the only bit from the other image that I actually want, is the starburst. So I'm going to get the eraser tool out, which is E on the keyboard, and erase with a soft edged brush, so hardness of 0. There we are. That's all I want, just that bit of the starburst. So that's how you do it. And then I'm going to, up here, click the little menu option and choose flatten image. So that's the entire image now done. I've got a drip on the end of my nose.